Okay, so there are a couple of disclaimers. First of all, I throw things. So if you fall asleep, you may get hit with something. It's kind of like the puck if you're at a hockey rink. Second thing, I'm going to challenge some myths. Some of these myths you will believe. You have been told them. You have been taught them. They're kind of like the Loch Ness Monster, right? At some level, you're like, I don't know, Loch Ness Monster sounds kind of shady. And at the same time, you're also going, it might be something different. Is everybody ready? All right, well, you guys aren't ready. Here, I tell you, okay, I got it. Here we go. Anybody interested in this topic? What's the answer? Yes. So, yes. Yeah, you can't do both. Which one do you do? Metadata. Why? Why do we do metadata? More flexible. Okay. Anybody on the folder team? Yeah. Okay. Jamie is the only person on the folder team. Your mom. All right, mom. We should call that in, right? Like call your mom. Okay, so there's nobody here that agrees with you, but we wanted to get your voice heard. So here's the thing. This is part of that. How do you do things? So when we do information architecture, what's our goal? Our goal is to make it easy for the users, right? That's like if you take a step back, okay, that makes sense. Well, if I'm using that as my evaluation criteria, what's easy for the user? If I'm storing documents, users know how to use folders. And they even know how to use nested folders. And you're like, no, nested folders are bad. I've been told nested folders are bad. I have never been attacked by a nested folder. I don't know about you. I don't know if they've gotten up and sprung out of the computer and got you, but I've never done that. See, the thing is, we have some of these false dichotomies. We have these things that we say, oh no, you should never ever do. I had this wonderful conversation with a good friend of mine, and he's like, yes, always metadata, always use metadata. And I'm like, cool. And he says, except. I'm like, ooh, wait a minute, something's coming. He says, except when you can't. Okay, thank you for that profound observation, right? One of the things that when we're managing information, we can't use metadata for is security, right? Because we need to be able to bucket things and build security. And all the security models, with a very few exceptions, are built around container hierarchies. And when you do container hierarchies, you have to be able to set security at a container hierarchy spot so that it flows down so you don't end up with too much. So folders we use for security, and we want metadata. We want that flexibility. We want it. We want it. But can we get it? All right. What do you guys think? Can we get metadata? Can we force our users to do the metadata thing? Well, I want to take a story. You guys, you know this, right? This is not a myth. Hand washing prevents the spread of germs. Not a myth. Does anybody here think that doctors don't know this? No. Okay. So, what do you believe the hand washing compliance rate is in an acute care setting? Now, mostly that means hospital. There's some other things, but let's just think hospital. What do you think the compliance rate is to hand washing around the world? Not high enough. Let's see. How about a number? Like let's play like auctioneer, right? Like so. What? Give me a number. 85% is too high. Somebody give me something lower. 72. 35 is still too high worldwide. 20. Wow. So worldwide, it's 20. Now I'm going to make you feel a little better, but not a lot better. What do you think it is here in the U.S.? 25. It's still higher than 25. Somebody give me a better number. 70 is in the range. 70 is in the range. 60 is in the range. The range in the United States, and it depends on whose numbers you want to believe, those darn statisticians, but it's somewhere between 50 and 80% hand washing compliance rates. Guys, metadata doesn't kill people. Metadata doesn't kill people. If they don't do the metadata, nobody dies. Nobody gets sick. There's no germ spread, right? So if we think we're going to force our users to do metadata entry, Yeah. First of all, we've broken our first rule, which is we're there to make it easier for the users. That's why we're there. That's what we're supposed to be doing. And second of all, yeah, no, they're not going to be able to do it. If they can't figure out how to wash their hands, how are they going to do this thing that we want them to do, which is metadata entry? And by the way, the answer is to trick them. And my favorite thing is to trick users into doing the behaviors I want. And it's super cool. There are a couple of really cool ways to do that. SharePoint's actually really good at converting folders into metadata. All right, so search versus navigation. What do you think? Should they use search to find things or navigation? Both. Search. Why not both? I love both. So, you know, and Microsoft's got this brand new thing, Microsoft Search, and it's going to be amazing. Have you ever seen a werewolf? People keep trying to sell us silver bullets, and I have not even found the werewolf yet. The thing is, and the numbers are changing, right? The numbers are changing. Who is doing search? Who is navigating? The numbers are changing. Still a little bit weighted towards people will navigate rather than searching. Search has still got that bad taste. Do you guys have what they call enterprise search in your organization? So, how well does that work? It's garbage. Okay. See, that's the experience people have, and so they don't trust search. They don't trust that search will actually find what they're looking for, and that's why they don't do it. Okay, so I've challenged one, and then I backed off, and I gave you guys a chance to breathe. Let me hit another one. So when you're designing your hierarchies, should you have shallow with many options or deep with few options per level? Wow, I've scared everybody already. That normally takes another 5 minutes. Okay, so I'm going to start throwing some. Somebody give me an answer. Shallow. Okay, you said shallow. All right. So I've got to talk a little bit about some research, because I like research because it actually generally tells me the thing that's going to make my solutions better. And I'm going to start with Barry Schwartz's work, the paradox of choice. Here's the thing. If I have choices between 3 different jams, if you don't like jams, think donuts. If you don't like donuts, think something else. Okay, but I've got a choice of 3. 1, 2, 3. The result is I'll probably buy one, right? If I have the choice of 20 jams, I won't buy any. Ooh, wait a minute, what's going on? Shouldn't more jams equal more sales? Shouldn't more choices mean I get to do more? Yeah, it should. It should absolutely, yes, right? I mean, boysenberry, who wouldn't want boysenberry jam? Joe says no. But, okay, but what's going on here? And the answer is that anxiety increases with the number of choices. Wait a minute. Hang on a second. Why does anxiety increase? What is it that's going on in our heads that as we have lots of options, we're going, I don't know. Anybody here afraid to make the wrong choice? Doesn't your probability of choosing the wrong thing go up as you get more choices, right? So what do we do about that? What do we do? We reduce the number of choices. Now, okay, so for those of you that said shallow and many, right? You're like, yeah, but there's this guy Hicks, and he wrote a law. Okay, he didn't actually write a law, but there's this Hicks Law thing, right? And so what does Hicks Law says? Now, I use the non-mathematical version of this. There is a mathematical formula that says the more items you put in a list, the quicker people can get to it versus having to pick it out of multiple lists. Great. Have you guys seen this? Have you guys know Hicks Law? Yeah, a couple of people do. Problem. Hicks Law makes a fundamental presumption that you understand the order of the list. Oh, no, that should be easy. Any of you guys do multilingual stuff? Yeah? What happens when you do multilingual? All of your options stay in the same place, and you change the word. What that means is, for anybody but English, the sort order is random, right? But let me take this back. Even just to the folks who are like, well, I don't do multi-languages, so I'm safe. No, actually you're not. And here's why. They don't know what word you used. So if I wanted to have a category for auto, automobile, vehicle, car, oh wait, that's all the same thing, right? Do they know to look for V, or do they know to look for the top? The answer is they don't. And so that's what gets us kind of in trouble. So here's my next favorite one. How many of you know the magic number 7? Woohoo! Right? We're not in Vegas, right? Because in Vegas, if you get 3 7s and there's coins raining down and all the old people start looking at you funny. But the magic number 7. Do you guys know where this came from? I'll throw things at you, or give you stuff. It's old Bell Labs. Okay, so so here's magic number 7 plus or minus 2 is 1956. Okay, and they said that people can remember 7 things plus or minus 2, right? Because it's a bell curve. Cool. Problem. They redid the same study in Europe. They could remember 5 plus or minus 2. Obvious conclusion, Europeans are stupider. No, that's the wrong conclusion. The right conclusion is that in European languages, it takes somewhere between 20 and 30% longer to say a decimal digit. Ooh, wait a minute. Hang on a second. I just said decimal digit. What was I talking about? You see, when they were doing this research, they were trying to figure out how long should you make phone numbers. You guys noticed that we had, until very recently, we had 7-digit phone numbers, right? Now we got to add the area code, but that's still a little bit different, right? So 7-digit phone numbers, that's what we could remember, and that's why they set them to 7 digits. Wait, so what were they testing with? Digits. How many of you have menu items that are 1, 2, 3, 4? Right? Like that's not a menu item, right? So the problem is it's 2 seconds of audio buffer. That's what they eventually came to understand. You can stop listening to me for 2 seconds and you'll still be able to hear in your head what I said. It's a buffer in your auditory system to give you a chance to replay what I was saying. So if you get momentarily distracted by a thought of a pink elephant or a yellow bunny or purple hearts or blue diamonds or whatever it is, Lucky Charms, you can come back and you can get back to where I'm at. So when we build things which are very wide, we end up with a problem. We end up having to try and subset scan. That doesn't really work so well auditorily. Visually, it's okay. And we're dramatically increasing the cognitive load. And if you do instructional design, you know cognitive load is, generally speaking, your enemy. We want to make things easy for people to do. And so I thought I would prove my point. I thought I would share just one little clip and I would prove my point. I thought I'd prove my point with audio. Maybe I'll prove my point with audio. Oops, there we go.
Hello and welcome to the Mental Health Hotline. If you are obsessive compulsive, press 1 repeatedly. If you are codependent, ask someone to press 2 for you. If you have multiple personalities, press 3, 4, 5, and 6. If you are paranoid, we know what you are and what you want. Stay on the line and we'll trace your call. If you're delusional, press 7 and your call will be transferred to the mothership. If you are schizophrenic, listen carefully and a small voice will tell you which number to press. If you are depressive, it doesn't matter which number you press, no one will answer you. If you're dyslexic, press 69696969. If you have a nervous disorder, please fidget with the hash key until the beep. After the beep, please wait for the beep. If you have a short-term memory loss, please try your call again later. And if you have low self-esteem, hang up. All our operators are too busy to talk to you.
How many of you have been through, not through that IVR experience, but how many of you have been through an IVR experience where you got to 2 and you're like, ooh, I like 2. 2 sounds good. I think 2's the one for me. And then you get down to 7 and you like it too. And you're like, oh, crap. I can't remember what 2 was. So I don't know if 7 is better than 2 for me. Right? So if you believe the magic number 7, you would say, well, that doesn't make any sense. Hopefully, I've totally dispelled the magic number 7 for you. And I'm not really trying to dispel all the magic. Like, Disneyland still lives in me, but I don't want us to be doing fiction for folks. All right, so industry solutions. So if I were to go to city planning, right, and I'm going to move to city planning, and this is the work of a guy by the name of Kevin Lynch. It's 1960, and he writes a book called In the Image of the City. And what he says is, the cities that have survived, that have thrived, that have done well, have figured out how to do these things well. They said, these are the things that help people move and orient themselves in space. Maps and signs. Okay? Maps and signs. There was lots of signage here, because the organizers did not want to get embarrassed by not having enough signage. There's signage in the back of the building in case you drove to the back to the loading dock, right? Like, we really wanted to make sure that you knew where you were going. Landmarks. So if I were to say Washington, D.C. or Paris, there's a phallic symbol somewhere that you can see from any place, right? If you are in Colorado, you can see mountains, and you actually learn to distinguish what the peaks and valleys of the mountains should look like. And so you have this kind of ever-present sense of where you are and where you're going. The paths, the channels of movement, the edges, the barriers, and I am not talking about a wall here. Sorry, I am talking about a wall. I'm not talking about that wall. Then you have districts, and at the end you have nodes. Where are those places where people navigate from one place to another? How do they get from one district to another? How do they get from one area of your application to another? If they have to back out to go someplace else, how do you manage to do that? All right, so now I'm going to shift, and I'm going to talk about information sent. This is a derivative of optimal foraging strategy, okay? And the idea is animals have to survive. And in order for them to survive, they have to know if they're going towards food or away from food, right? Pretty basic concept. So what we want to do when we're building our solutions is leverage this idea that there is an information scent just like there is an animal scent. We want to take this information, we want to say, you know what? Is the information that we seek in this direction or not? Am I moving closer or am I moving further away? How do we make it feel like rabbits live here? How do we make it feel like this is the place you go to figure out if your sales team is doing well? How do we make it feel as if this is operations, or this is executives, or this is whatever? How do we, when we're designing our solutions, give them a feel? That palpable gut kind of thing that isn't, I don't know, right? Pastel colors and hard numbers don't go well. Deep blues and other things where people have a sense for this is precision lead you to someplace else. So back to our friend Search. Our friend Search says, well, I give you an answer. Problem. They go down the wrong path. They click the top link and they go, that wasn't it. And they go back and they go to the second link and they go back and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. It's the number 2 thing that Google uses to figure out whether it's doing a good job. It's the number 2 thing that it uses to drive relevancy. The number 1 is backlinks. The number 1 is what people I trust say that you are a good place to go. Number 2 will override number 1 in some cases. In your systems, when you're building your information architecture, do you monitor the number of people that go down a link and come back? They go down and they come back. And their PO go down and up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down. Those people get frustrated. The information sent you've provided at the link doesn't correspond with what they find at the other end of it. All right, so I love doing this as instructor-led. I love teaching people that teaching people is not effective. That's what Marcia Bates says. Marcia said basically, that big, huge being aware thing, That thing is how everybody learns. I've been talking to you about information sent and ambient and how do you get people to just kind of know, right? And she says that that's 80%. All right, so I'm going to give away another deck of cards. Somebody tell me what I mean when I say Emerald Isle. Ireland. Is that you, ma'am? Hey, Joe, will you? Well, okay, we'll see. Hey! Once every 3 years, I get that right. You have no idea how many lawsuits there have been. And yes, I love the Outer Banks, but not generally speaking, except there is a city there called Emerald Isle, isn't there? Yeah. Very cool. I have beautiful pictures of lighthouses from there, so we'll do that later. But here's the thing, right? Like, so we believe that this instructor-led training thing is the answer. It's not. If we really want to help people understand, we need to figure out ways that they need minimal training or no training. How do we make this smaller and smaller? And how do we leverage the fact that just by the fact that they breathe and they look around and they pay attention, they get to answers? Here's another strategy. This is one I use. So every single week on my blog, I review a book. That means I read one every week too. I don't just make this stuff up, right? So, but I have a very interesting way that I write it. And the way that I write it is kind of like the Arabian Nights. You guys, you know this story, right? Like, king wanted to kill the lady, but she always left a cliffhanger, right? Like, she tied one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. And so pearl growing is about, I've got one little piece here, and I'm going to wrap other things around it. I'm going to point directly into the places that I need to go. And so I'll reference from one book to another. How do we leverage that kind of a strategy and that sort of an idea for what we're building in information architecture? How do we build connections in ways that are not the primary path? How do we make it easy to jump from the client's folder of files to the record in Salesforce and vice versa? How do we make those things easy? You see, sometimes the way that we find stuff isn't the way that we find stuff. You guys know that we found planets, exosolar planets, right? How'd we find them? Okay, the answer's on the board. I'll let you cheat. Doppler effect, right? We saw light changes as this supermassive planet starts swinging a star around as the planet orbits it, right? Sometimes we've got to look in alternate ways to find the answers that we want. Sometimes those secondary paths become really good primary paths. Sometimes the walk is easy. Okay, so here we go. Next item up. How many is this? One. Who said one first? I can't. Okay, ready? Oh, good catch. That was not a good throw. It was a good catch. Okay. So one. So I'm in Germany, and I go to a pizza parlor. I don't speak German, by the way. I was there for a client, and I'm walking by myself. By the way, don't necessarily recommend that, but anyway. So I walk into a pizza parlor, and I'm like, I want one pizza. And the guy goes, he brings out a guy from the back that speaks English. He says, my boss says that you want to have two pizzas. I'm like, no, I want one pizza. And he goes, no, we start counting on the thumb. 1, 2, right? And I'm like, yeah, I'm not that hungry. So he helped me out. All right, so another one about food. Rude or disrespectful? It depends where you are. Which grandma is on the other side of the plate? So we all live in the Midwest, right? And in the Midwest, you clean your plate. Right? You clean your plate or else, right? Because that was the way that you told your mom, no, the cooking wasn't burnt and awful, Mom. I ate it all, right? Now, my mom is a really good cook, but it's funny to think about it that way. What if you do this and you're in China or anywhere in the Middle East or in Far East? Right, exactly. They're going to be super upset. All right, I want to reward you, but these guys in front are looking really concerned. Ready? You got a coffee cup? Okay. Woo! Ah, yes, a sliding catch. I love those. All right. So But that's the thing, right? So a lot of times when we're building our information architecture, we have to know the context in which it's operating, right? Okay, would you, just one more. Which side of the mall? The right side. Who says something different? The right side of each side. The right side of each side. Okay. Anybody say the left though? Exactly. So do the folks from New Zealand. A friend of mine from New Zealand actually told me this one time. He's like, man, we got over here and you guys all walked the wrong way in the mall.
I think they believe that in the Circle Cinema Mall.
Yeah, did they? Yeah. So again, context. What are the users used to? What do they think? How does it work for them, right? I'm going to skip that last one because I want to get us back on time. So, how do adults learn? Now, I've already shown you Marcia Bates's work. This is actually Malcolm Knowles' work. So, the thing is, like, we have all been subjected to pedagogy. That is, being taught like a child, right? And what's the model there? The model there is, well, what we do is we open the zipper at the top of their heads and we dump it in and we make them repeat it and we make them repeat it and we make them repeat it and then they learn, right? How well does that work for you? Doesn't work, right? Because we're adults. And what Malcolm Knowles and his colleagues said, what they said was, look, we don't learn the same way. So this is andragogy, and these are the, there we go, steps that you need. You have to be able to apply what you're learning to you. You may have noticed during this presentation, I made a point of using a lot of analogies. I made a point of trying to come back to where I think you might be. Now, I don't know you personally. I'd love to meet you afterwards. But you had to know, how does this relate to me? Why do I need to know this? Right? We started with myths. We started with these myths that exist and we believe. And I end with, you have to know how to connect. Your information architecture is great if you can connect with people so that they can understand the intent and navigate through that intent. So one last thing that I want to leave you with, and it's steel axe heads. And you're like, this sounds dangerous, right? Like there's all this violence in the media. But actually what I'm talking about goes all the way back to Everett Rogers wrote a book called Diffusion of Innovations. Have you guys read that? Has anybody read that? It's a super cool book. Highly recommend it. He made this sort of offhand comment back in the back of the book. And it's like, oh yeah, by the way, steel axe head's bad. I'm like, what's that about? So I actually did track down the article. And if you see me, I'll show you the article. It's funny in a spooky sort of way. The trick is here that you can do something in an environment and cause absolutely awful consequences which you cannot predict. So you have an Aboriginal tribe in Australia in the backwoods, and they have a whole society built around the loaning of stone axe heads. So you have to go to the elders, and it's only the elders that own those stone axe heads because they're hard to create, and you beg with them, please favor on me, blah, 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 blah. Missionaries, like, oh man, these poor people, they don't have axe heads. These poor people, and they're stone. The ones they do have are stone. That's awful. We'll give them steel axe heads. Okay, cool. What's the result? The breakdown of society. The absolute total breakdown of society. When I read it in Rogers' work, he said prostitution. And I went, that seems like a strange way to pay a lady. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. But the article is a little clearer. The point remains that whatever we do as information architects, whatever we do to create our design, we will necessarily create unintended consequences. It isn't like, oh no, I'll avoid those. I'm just going to be good, all good and not bad. the title of this presentation is how to create the right messes. And I've hopefully shown you a couple of ways that you can do that. But you're still going to create messes. No matter what you do, no matter how good you are, know how amazing you are, how much you know, you're going to create messes. The trick is, how do you learn enough to create the right messes rather than the wrong messes? So I will let everybody ponder that for a second. Now I'm going to ask you for questions. What have I talked about? So let me actually change that. What was the thing that I told you that you believed the myth before and you're convinced that it's a myth now? I could make it multiple choice. That'd be good. Well, what do you still think is a myth?
I don't know if I think it's a myth, but the folders versus metadata, and the biggest limitation there that I haven't been able to solve is the fact that metadata allows you to belong to both places but without linking. And that still seems to be an issue. When you've got multiple trees to go down,
Yep.
you can only store it in one.
So the trick is default metadata based on folder location. Allow users to augment where they will. And very few percent of the time they'll do that. And so that creates a different search experience from a store experience. So the creator does one thing, the consumer uses search, because whenever you're using metadata, you're effectively using search, right? It's just constrained search. And so you have folders, you convert folders to metadata. And by the way, vice versa. If you have a scenario where it's a system that's dumping it out, so the metadata is in it, you convert that into folder structure. So it's easy to navigate. Guys, you may not have noticed this, but OneDrive, Google Drive, Amazon Drive, Box, Dropbox, I'm sure I'm missing several other file synchronization tools. They won. Metadata lost. Microsoft at one time was going to release a WinFS, Windows file system, that was metadata based. They killed it, in part because they couldn't figure it out, but in part because they figured out that users wouldn't use it. So, folders are, unfortunately, a necessity for our world. We have to allow users to synchronize files to their laptops so that they can come to presentations. So, other thoughts or questions? Yes, sir.
Another thing I think you are trying to convey is everything depends on the context.
Mm-hmm.
Which side you want to walk.
Yeah.
Folder or metadata depends
yep.
on where you're going to apply that concept.
Yeah. Very cool. Do you have a question, or that's just the thing that was the takeaway? Takeaway. Yeah. Awesome. Anyone else? Yes, sir. So what I would call those are, so what are my thoughts on search filters? So I would call those refiners, my ability to refine my search based on that. I love refiners. The usability on refiners is super, super high because in context, it's only the values that are there. The trick for most people is getting the metadata to drive the refiners. For me, the problem is always how do we get people to do that metadata entry? How do we do that if it's not their quote-unquote job? Does that make sense? Anyone else? Yes, sir.
So how do you architect an application for context?
How do you? Give me a quick application. Give me something. Are we talking about a mobile application? Is it a business application?
A mobile application, for example.
Okay, so let's do this. Let's do field force, right? So you have people in the field, and they're going to use your application. So I know that somebody who, and I happen to see your badge, so if I were doing auto insurance and I had an adjuster, what would the adjuster need? What would the things that he would need in that application? What would the order of operations be for him, right? Like he might come up and his job is actually to console the customer, right? Oh yeah, we'll take care of it. He will probably take photos around the car first. Then he'll get to what the then is and verifying the then. So if you build an app that starts by verifying the then, right? And you're like, no, but I have to because that's the record. That's how I open the record. But I think about it differently. I think about how's the person going to do the interaction with the customer. And you go, yeah, okay, but I've got other users for this app. Well, okay, what other users do you have for the app? Well, I have the manager that's doing dispatch. Well, he has a totally different interface. He looks at the problem differently, right? The dispatch interface may be about thens, or it may be about customer name, or it may be, probably I would hope, is about location and proximity. Might be about severity. How do I change the color if it's more severe? Yes, sir.
I really like the point you made about how people learn from being aware,
Yep.
as opposed to being told to do. Because I find that to be unintuitively true, but you still have to like put them in the right spot.
Yes.
I feel like they're not as disconnected as that may come across. I'm curious.
So how do you do it? Yeah. So I do a lot of work with intranets. I help people redesign the way they communicate and collaborate. And so simple, I put digital signage up. And so I'm communicating awareness. I can't communicate like, here's how to fill out your employee benefits re-enrollment, but I can get awareness. I can go, hey, you need to think about this now. Or, you know, parking lot's going to be closed, that kind of stuff.
Kind of like giving awareness but not directions. So here are the directions.
Right. So the thing is we teach like it's only one thing, right? But it isn't only one thing. At some level, the I don't care yet, that's called the awareness, right? Like I want to know that it exists, but I don't want to know how it does it. You guys have any gadgets that you're like, when I have the need, I'm going to get that thing, right? And you're like, I just haven't found the need yet. I may have to manufacture one, but, right? That's awareness. Knowledge, I literally have got to know how to turn this wrench. Literally got, right? That's different. And so you can teach awareness ambiently. You can teach the how-to with step-by-step instructions or a walkthrough with it. But what happens is you do that at point of entry. So that's where Malcolm Knoll's work comes in. And this is the time where they really want to know exactly how to do that thing. Cool? Awesome. Yes, sir.
I agree with your folder concept. I'm just wondering, what is it, you know, when you think in terms of like Google Maps and Street View,
Yep.
quantum leap that made, what would make folders go that at a level?
My wife had never watched The Matrix. So my wife and I watched The Matrix. Do you guys remember how The Matrix worked? Like you just plug it into your head? Yeah. That's a quantum leap. The problem is we just, the way our brains are wired, and all the neuropsychology of it, we want to filter and do that information synth thing. We want to do that. So metadata breaks all that. We don't know where to start. Like if I'm doing e-com, totally makes sense to do metadata, right? Because like, okay, so we'll do this. This is fun. All right, ladies, how do you pick your shoes? Who's willing to tell me the criteria, the way that you go about picking your shoes? To buy. Okay, so by size is the first starting point. We're going to try and do this and not kill anybody. Good job. All right, anybody else want to take a shot at it? Yes, ma'am. Yeah. So casual heels, dress. Okay, so often when I ask this question, I get color, and then I get the real answer. And you can tell me I'm wrong, but it's outfit. I'm buying shoes to fit the outfit, right? All right, guys in the room. How do we buy shoes? Right? Like, for guys, there are only 3 colors. White, brown, and black. That's all there is, right? And you're like, no, I know some people that's not. Those are Metro guys. They're a little different, right? And it's sneakers, sandals, some people wear boots, and dress shoes. And that's it, right? We don't have the complications to it. And that's where metadata is super useful because you can put size first, you can put heel height first, you can whatever, and I can pick which one I want to do. Most of our problems are not that multivariate. Most of our problems, you make a decision between 2 that most users know both answers, and they may prefer to do one way, but they end up doing another. So, all right, I think I got to get out of here. So thanks, everybody. It's a lot of fun.